What's going on, guys? It's the Unhinged Engineer here, and as I'm sure you know, competence is very, very important in the interviewing process. It shows that A, we're being authentic, we're presenting ourselves as we really are, and how we act in the interview is likely a good predictor of how we're going to act on the job. Right? It shows that we are who we say we are. And on top of that, it shows that we have the self-belief and the agency required to perform well in high-stress, difficult jobs like engineering can very well be. And so, despite confidence being super important in that moment, I know firsthand that it can be really, really hard to project ourselves that way. Maybe we aren't feeling confident in that moment. We're feeling nervous, we're feeling anxious, we're not sure if we're the right fit for the job or the job is the right fit for us. And so it is really, really difficult to come off as confident in that very moment. Now, recently I went through my own rounds of interviews and I found myself saying things that not only was I unsure of whether or not it was the right thing, but I was unsure of whether or not it was coming off as confident versus cocky. And I think that one of the biggest things that prohibits people from coming off confidently in the right way is fear of coming off as cocky. And so in that moment, I kind of just had to plow through. Maybe in certain moments I did come off as cocky, but I just kind of went with it, presented myself as authentically as I could, and thankfully it worked out. But afterwards, I kind of was reflecting on okay, what is the difference between confidence and cockiness in the interview? How can we present ourselves in this positive way that shows the things I mentioned at the beginning of this video without coming off as a cocky person who's just bad to work with, bad teammate? And so after further reflection, I'm excited to share with you in this video what I think really differentiates someone from coming off as cocky versus confident in an interview. So for the purposes of today's conversation, I want to frame this as a spectrum with a threshold in the middle, right? So on one end, we have confidence, and on the other hand, we have cockiness. And I'm going to put these two things on a spectrum, and the main thing we're worried about here is crossing this confidence cockiness threshold. We want to be on this side, we don't want to be on this side. And I just want to put a disclaimer in here, not to get too off topic from engineering. I don't really think that confidence and cockiness lie on a threshold. I actually think they're pretty unrelated in real life in terms of the kind of person we are. I think oftentimes the people who are the cockiest can really be the most not confident, the most insecure, right? Versus people who come off as humble, come off as not cocky in that moment are usually the ones who are very confident. That's something I've tried to live by as best I can. Nobody's perfect, of course. But for this conversation, I'm really just talking about perception. I'm just talking about in that moment, in the interview, one-on-one conversation, how are we being perceived? And I do think in this very specific scenario, kind of irrelevant to the rest of our lives, I do think that these two things lie on a threshold. And in this video, I'm going to talk about some ways we can come off or things we can say that push us in the wrong direction and others that can push us in the right direction. So this is kind of the mental framework I'm going to use for this talk. Okay, so the first kind of dichotomy I want to talk about here is defaulting to honesty versus embellishment and obfuscation. Sorry for the big words. So what do I mean by this? I'm mainly talking about how do we handle that uncertainty we feel in the moment of the interview. For me, when I find myself getting very nervous, I try my best to just kind of default to honesty, right? So just as an example, if somebody asks me a question that I don't really know the answer to, our natural inclination, if we want the job, is to try to think of what the other person wants us to say. People please custom tailor our answer to what we expect the other person to want. And in my experience, this is something that's very, very easy to see through and immediately screams unauthenticity, right? Especially then if we're doing this in a way that either embellishes our achievements or obfuscates our weaknesses, right? So we're hiding our weaknesses and we're hyping up our strengths and achievements and accomplishments as much as humanly possible without actually sharing what we think and what we believe. This is a great way right here to come off as cocky as possible. So this is when you get the people who have rehearsed every bullet, have gone through the XYZ method of every single thing they've ever achieved in their lives, and everything just comes off as very robotic, hyper optimized to gas themselves up as much as possible and hide any and all weaknesses that they might have. Versus defaulting to honesty is just saying in that moment, okay, what do I really think? And then just presenting it bluntly, honestly, without any kind of weird bells and whistles. Just getting straight to the point, really articulating what we believe and why. this is a great way to come off as somebody who's confident, right? You believe what you say, you know what you say, versus cocky. This is someone just trying to put on a show. Along those same lines, I want to talk about using specifics in an interview, aka data as engineers, or making absolute claims on the other end. So the best engineers, the best experts, often don't come off as experts. Usually it's cocky people who come out with these absolute insane claims that are universal truisms to them. Versus an engineer always knows that decisions they made or outcomes they got from those decisions are very, very circumstantial. There's a specific set of reasons that what they did or did not work. And so including those caveats, including those details in what we say to the interviewer is really, really a good sign, not only of confidence, but also of wisdom, versus coming out with these absolute claims that you're saying, oh, I believe this is the case all the time. A universal truth I found in engineering is such and such, or every time I do this, it works. Like these kinds of claims just, again, feel like showboating, feel like trying to come off as cocky, like peacocking, literally. That's what these absolute claims come off as, versus when we include specifics and data, it really shows that we're like someone who has gone through these experiences before, has reflected on them in a meaningful way, and can bring that wisdom, that value to whatever organization we're interviewing. And that's super, super important. The last thing I want to talk about here is kind of two different kinds of confidence. One is genuine confidence I think we should strive for. The other is just kind of like faux cockiness that I don't think is actually helpful. The good side is I am confident. Oops, forgot how to write. I am confident I can do this job. This is something that I was saying to myself over and over and over again, and I really did believe when interviewing for the position I recently took on. Versus, I am confident I will get this job. Or, even worse, already have this job. That's the worst one. So these are two very different kinds of worldviews to hold in this, again, microcosmic interview we're talking about, right? If you're confident that you can do this job, it means you're confident that you're in the right place, that you're talking to the right people, you're doing the right things, and that your experiences give you the legs required for this position that you're interviewing for. It doesn't really mean you're going to get it. As I'm sure we're all aware in today's job market, there are lots of reasons you may or may not get the job. Some of which are in your control, other ones are not. On the flip side here, I am confident I will get this job. I think this is a really bad mindset to take, especially because you could do everything right. You could come off as confidently as possible in these ways, but then feel like you're definitely going to get the job, and the second you don't, you will be crushed. Now, there's a difference between being confident that you can do this job and then knowing your worth, kind of doing the calculus and saying, okay, you know what? I do feel like compared to other candidates at this phase of my career, interested in these companies, I have a really, really good shot. That is something that I was doing over the course of my interviews. Versus if I just written this off as like, I'll get this job. Right? There's almost this like carelessness of just saying, oh, it doesn't matter what I say. I'm just gonna like tell them how great I am the whole time, make all these absolute claims I think are right, and I'm confident that I'm just gonna waltz through and be offered this job at the end. I can assure you, this makes you much less likely to have that outcome than just being confident that you can do the job and doing your best to present yourself authentically. Because again, I'm confident I will get this job is all about like marketing. I bet these people think I'm great. I'm so great. I come off as so great. Everything I say is gold. I'm going to get this job. No sweat. Versus saying, you know what? Like, I am confident I can do this, and I'm going to give them evidence that that's the case, and I'm going to tell them authentically who I really am and what I really think. And at the end of the day, this will roll my way because hopefully, we believe in good things coming to us, right? Now, this is kind of the mindset I tried to take throughout my entire interview. I was really saying to myself, if I don't get this job, I think it's a missed opportunity for the employer. I'm eager to take any feedback they may have, and I will roll that into whatever next place I interview at. And sooner or later, I will get the job that I really believe I can do. I will be given the opportunity I really believe I can do. And so these are kinds of different things I believe can make us come off as more confident or come off as more cocky when we're interviewing for a position. So I want to wrap up here with kind of two important points of this. First of all, we're all human, and there is no way that we're going to come off in the 99 percentile confident, 1% percentile cocky. We can't come off confident and not cocky in everything we say. At the end of the day, people take things in different ways that we can't really predict. And so I'm sure throughout my interview process, there were things I said that came off as cocky. I'm sure there were also things I said that I thought came off as confident, that came off as super humble, and maybe even self-demeaning. Who knows? People interpret things however they're going to interpret them. And so in general, it's about the aggregate. Overall, if you're doing multiple rounds of interviews, or even if you've interned with people and worked with them for a prolonged period of time, hopefully they've had enough interactions with you that biased this way, biased towards confidence, that when when you slip up, when you say something that maybe is a little bit of an embellishment or maybe more of an absolute claim than you should have made based on the experiences you've had, they kind of write that off and say, oh, I think he's just confident. I think he believes these things. Maybe he's right, maybe he's not. It's whatever. It's about the aggregate. How do we come off as a whole? So at the end of the day, this is kind of a dichotomy, and we're going to fall one way versus the other. Whether we land here, or here, or here, we don't know. And then the second point, all these things I'm talking about are really just more about being a good teammate than the interview process. In addition to our experiences and accolades, which for a large part just speak for themselves, we're really just trying to come off as a good teammate, somebody that they want to work with. And so, somebody who lies about their weaknesses or takes credit for other people's work, that's not a good teammate to have. Somebody who uses specifics and data to back up their assertions, that's a great teammate to have. Somebody who is expecting entitlement to all the accolades and promotions and raises and all this stuff is not a good teammate, as compared to someone who is confident they can do things, confident they have the skills required to do a job, and then execute on these skills. So all of this conversation that we're talking about here is really just a proxy for how to be a good teammate. Obviously, there's more to it than just this. That's a topic for another video. But at the end of the day, these are two things I really want to point out. Number one, we're not perfect. And number two, it's really just about coming off as a good teammate in that interview, being likable, right? As simple as it sounds. So I hope you found this video helpful. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm the Unhinged Engineer. In case you can't tell, I make professional development content for young aerospace engineers, software engineers, people trying to build cool technology and work at awesome companies like me. If that's somebody you are, if you can relate to that journey, I'd highly recommend you like, comment, and subscribe. I'm also vlogging my grad school journey. I'm getting a master's in computer science at night while I continue to work full-time as an aerospace engineer. If that is something you're interested in, I would highly recommend you like, comment, and subscribe in my very, very unbiased opinion. So thanks a lot for watching. I hope that this video kind of helps you in your next round of interviews. Best of luck, and I will see you next time.